Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm your host, Bert Miller, and I'm excited about today's episode. One that's delivering groundbreaking technology that literally can impact humanity, and that's high quality drinking water. We all understand the scarcity of drinking water throughout the world, and today's episode is going to be a good one. Last year, I was able to introduce the global CEO of the A1RWATER company, Alex Guy, and today, my guest is from the A1RWATER company is Pete Carr, who's now the CEO of A1RWATER Americas. With early traction already in the Middle East, Pete is now leading the charge here in the U.S. and all the possibilities of delivering air to water technology to consumers. Pete brings a host of experiences from companies like Diageo, Red Bull, and most recently Bacardi. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Thanks for having me, Bert. Good to see you.
Absolutely. So it's great to have you on here, and obviously you have taken that transition from the illustrious career that you did have in the adult beverage over the last several years, most recently.
35.
35 years.
Yeah.
Okay. You aged yourself right there. So anyhow, you've made a decision to leave the alcoholic beverage world and come over to this clean technology called A1RWATER company. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's exciting. People that know me are always here. Don't chase money, chase opportunity. And A1RWATER screams opportunity. If you look at the possibilities, first of all, a lot of people don't understand what A1RWATER technology is. There's more humidity in the air than in all the rivers combined. And if you can source that, which we can, and disinfect it, mineralize it, and have it come out pure drinking water, who wouldn't chase that opportunity? If you look at water as a source of life, you have to have water to live. Necessarily don't need food, but you have to have water. So if I look at that opportunity, also combined with the technology, and you look at, everybody's talking about water. In the Middle East, they say water is the new oil. So everybody knows something has to be done. And the reason I'm chasing this opportunity is because there's a bigger picture out there. And that's what I find the most important.
So, no, that's fantastic. And so when you think about the brands that you've represented over the years and now leading the charge here with A1RWATER, what is your vision and how do you see this playing out? What are the possibilities for A1RWATER company and air-to-water technology here in the U.S.?
First of all, the possibilities are endless, and that's why it's such a neat space. But if I look at compared to whether it be Diageo, Bacardi, Red Bull, whatever it may be, it's a CPG. It's still going to be a fast-moving consumer products goods company. There's a couple different verticals that I think you're going to see us focus on. One would be machine sales, that we could produce water farms. We could put pure drinking water in schools. You can put it in offices, right there pulled from the humidity in the room or in the area. The other one would be sports drink space. You could also look at the other opportunity is pure drinking water, whether it be sparkling, whether it be still, to have that available and think about all the different areas you can go. I don't need a water source. My water source is the air, is the humidity. Every other bottled water company, if you look at it, has to have a water source. But what they're doing is they're pulling from local resources, local rivers, that type of thing. California judge just ruled that they're going to start monitoring how much water you can pull out of the rivers, out of the resources, especially in the Russian River part of California. Big wine country. So everybody knows there's water shortages throughout. Nobody has come with a commercial solution that's viable until now.
Yeah, and so you think about that in terms of the sources. So you have ocean water, you have rivers, obviously, you have all the groundwater. And why the scarcity is happening is a lot of the groundwater is not being replaced in the amount of time that it takes to keep that sustainable for our future. And so this technology does that, and that's truly, truly exciting. So when I think about the air, water, and how you're going to utilize that, how are you going to go to market? Walk me through a little bit of where you see the people that are the channels perhaps that might be using air-to-water technology and providing it to the consumers?
Well, air to water could be used in any business. So if you're manufacturing goods in the alcohol business, if AI technology to cool the computers, you can go through I guarantee you go through every business and there's a need for water. We can go water for villages. You could do water for schools. We can do water for CPG-wise, bottled water. If you look at Primo Water that just bought Blue Triton, $3.5 billion market cap. But if you look at what they just paid for it, $6.5 billion. Primo Water just bought Blue Triton. And those are the arrowheads of the waters, bottled waters. So if you look at all those, that's our competition. That's who we're going to go after. Well, and then we can sell units, what I said before, to families, to businesses, big manufacturing equipments and companies as well. So our opportunities, in my thinking, are endless as to what verticals we can play in.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? Knowing how to tackle each of those endless opportunities in the right way. So high quality drinking water that's viable and cost effective. So AirWater is doing that.
And available.
Right. So AirWater is doing that. Is AirWater the first of its kind in the marketplace?
There are some competitors out there, but the biggest difference that we're seeing is the commercialization of it. How do you bring it to people? So the engineers designed it. Now the next big step is how do we commercialize it? How do we make it viable for individuals to have access to it? How do we tie in with companies, with technology to produce it at scale? Think of the water farms, producing water at scale, and then we can turn, it could be, watering crops. It could be watering, trees, almond trees out in California.
Right.
It's endless possibilities what we can do with water.
Absolutely. So when you think about also your background, so if you look at your CPG background, your beverage background, how are you going to bring that? How are you going to use your skill set and experiences for AirWater?
Well, if you look at any company in general, it needs strong leadership. You need a strong culture. You need people that can set a simple vision that everybody can rally behind and be able to execute. That's the biggest thing I've seen as I've gone to different companies. It's simplifying it, getting people bought in. So all those fundamentals that come from leading large corporations or just businesses and connecting with the people, to me, are table stakes. You've got to be able to do that if you're going to be successful in business. Now the next is finding a strategy that's going to work so that we can beat the competition, beat them to market, be consistent on how we deliver against that. And those are the four verticals I talked about. One is machine sales. 2 would be do sports drinks. 3 would be regular drinking water, still or sparkling. So if you look at those, that's like CPG opportunity. Because the best thing I have going for me is I can put, as long as I have power or solar, I can produce water. So think of forward deployment for troops. Think of, we're in Florida, South Florida, right. Hurricanes. We're right in the middle of hurricane season. You look at the West Coast, they still don't have pure drinking water. Miccosukee Indian tribe still doesn't always have pure drinking water. So if we can provide those solutions for people that need it, everybody should have access to pure drinking water around the world. That should be a basic fundamental human right. That's one of the things that we're really focused against.
Yeah, I love that, and bridging back to that in terms of the strategy. So with all these possibilities, as you're now kicking it off here in the U.S., and that's what we're really talking today about, the possibilities in the U.S. as we do not currently have traction here. What is going to be the strategy to kick this off? Where are you going to go first? What are you looking at doing?
I don't know if I'm going to tell you my secrets, Bert, but it is interesting because we are literally starting this from scratch. I think there's 4 of us on the payroll in the U.S. The UAE, where it's been kicked off, there's a large number of people that have been working on it. So we have proven concept. We know it works. We've been testing with the Fairmont Hotel in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. We know that we can create a flywheel that can produce water, give it to consumers inside the hotel, bars, restaurants, whatever it may be. And then we go back, recycle the water, wash the bottles, and then do that flywheel. So we know that the concept works. We know we can produce at scale. As we develop the strategy, because I'm pretty much at day one, as we develop the strategy going forward, it will be against CPG, it will be against technology spaces, and it will be with machine.
No, so that I love that. So you had the Fairmont in the Middle East. They've eliminated all the plastic bottles, right?
Yeah.
In terms of that. So what is the impact?
You talk about that. That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
You know, they completely eliminate. I've been over there, and it's amazing to see a country that just puts an edict in place that says this is what it will be, and everybody follows it.
Yeah.
In the U.S., that will take some time, but people do have that same belief that it will happen.
The technology is amazing if you think about the fact that it is eliminating, in that case, plastic bottles, and probably by the hundreds of thousands. So what's your first step now? What are you going to do in terms of building your team? What's that going to look like? Any particular channels you're looking at just to start?
Working with sports teams, doing partnerships with them, because if athletes want to compete at their best, we can help them with the alkalinity, the electrolytes, different things like that. We can work with the trainers to make it very specific to whatever needs they have. So that's the big opportunity. Just bringing bottled water, sparkling or still, to the high-end luxury business, whether it be hotels, restaurants, bars. What's the first thing you do when you sit down at a table? You want sparkling or still? And a lot of times you don't even ask, but that's a huge opportunity. Every time I walk into a hotel or bar or restaurant, everybody's talking about sustainability. Some people are doing something about it. A lot of people don't know what to do about it. But if I can simply bring a product to market that doesn't take resources away from the environment, gives back to the community, who's not going to want to buy that? You're
delivering the ability to bespoke almost by client how they want the water to be delivered in terms of mineralization, et cetera.
Right.
And you're doing all that by using the technology of taking air and making this high quality drinking water. So that sounds fantastic. I mean, you're right. When you think about it, it's a no-brainer. But if you're thinking about the U.S., as you're leading the U.S., what are your thoughts, and how are you going to go about getting people excited? And what do you think the adoption rate for the U.S. market to water from the air?
I think it's communicating the message so people understand, what it is first and foremost. And I've got a great person in marketing, Jessica, who's already started to tell that story in the UAE. We just have to be able to come back here and explain it to people. A lot of people, when I was at Red Bull, didn't know what Red Bull was. My dad goes, it's a $2 can of sugar water. And look at that business, now as a huge opportunity. So once we can explain what it is, show people and demonstrate to them what it is, they're going to understand it. And I believe there's going to be a quick adoption rate of being able to be a part of this brand. Think about the community opportunities we have to display the equipment, to show people that it works. Some people think, that it's magic. Ideally it is. But if you look at that, explaining it, and then it goes back to working with marketing agencies. We can do artisanal water in certain regions, whether it be in California, whether it be in Texas, Georgia, or down here in Florida. So we can do regional water spins as well. So we have a lot of different opportunities. I think the better question is, what aren't we going to do? That's the question that keeps me up at night, because there's so many different things going on that we could easily get distracted. We're going to focus in South Florida first and foremost, so south of I-4. If anybody, that's the highway that cuts between Orlando and Tampa. So south of there, that is going to be our first point of entry to make sure we know we have the right to win in the space, and nobody's really in it that's commercialized it. But then two, we have the right to win in South Florida, and we can make the right partnerships, whether it be with all the different sports teams, whether it be with FIU and the hospitality school, whether it be with Disney in Orlando. So those are the possibilities. That's just South Florida.
Right.
We got the rest of the U.S. and Americas to do something with it.
And you think about the possibilities. Every hotel you go in, you go to your hotel room, you have bottles of water.
Yeah.
Usually plastic bottles of water in many cases, or reused water in some bottles. You go to the restaurants, you go to the cafes, it's water. The opportunities are truly endless. This technology is amazing. So anything you would like to add before we kind of move to part two?
The opportunity, if you even look at the Caribbean, I lived in Bermuda for almost 2 years, but sometimes they do run out of water. Water in the Caribbean and other markets is as expensive as gasoline is. So think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
And if you look at all these countries that have water sourcing issues, they're going to need that technology. By 2030, which is just over 5 years from now, you're going to see huge water issues, whether it be out in California, whether it be in India, Singapore, on down the line. So we're just not looking at what we can impact in South Florida or Dubai and Abu Dhabi, where we started. We're looking globally.
Yeah, that is so incredible when you really think about the impact that you can have, and I understand why you think about your career and what you've done. The decision you've made to come to AirWater is pretty obvious. It's not even altruistic. It is literally, it's necessary, it's a need, it's for humanity, and it's amazing that you guys have the technology that you can extract air at a commercially viable level that's affordable and turn it into high quality drinking water. That's amazing, Pete.
I don't know if you know this guy said this to me one time as we were talking about whether I'd go work for this company, and he said to me, he goes, "Hey Pete, maybe you could finally make a difference."
There you go. There you go. I know a guy like that.
That was Bert.
I know a guy like that. Well, Pete, thanks for being on the first part of the show. What we're going to do now is we're going to reshuffle the deck here and bring Ryan Bibbo, the CEO of Americas, on, and we'll talk about go-to-market and some of the impact worldwide and what the potential impact here in the U.S. specifically around the category will be. So be right back with you. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the second part of Beyond the Bottom Line with the AirWater Company, and joining us here in the studio is Ryan Bibbo, the COO of Americas for the AirWater Company. Ryan, too, comes from the consumer product space, Diageo, and most recently Bacardi. So Ryan, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Bert.
So we've had a chance to spend some time with Pete and talk a little bit about what the possibilities of AirWater are. Just open up for us and why you decided to join AirWater and your thoughts about why that's really, really important.
Yeah, I think, as Pete alluded to, I think the hardest thing for us to do is to try to figure out what not to do. And the possibilities on this opportunity is fantastic. And, as I was evaluating, as I was thinking through my career, and I've similarly spent about 25 years in the adult beverage space, and bumped into this guy about 20 years ago, about 5 years after I met you.
Right.
But there was something different about this one, and the opportunities of both a potential consumer path, but then also everything down the part of manufacturing, agriculture, hospitality. There's large opportunities for it, and as Pete mentioned, if there's water that's in need, there's an opportunity for us here. So to me, that was something that was just too excited and had to get involved with.
Absolutely. So think about that. So when you think about the technology, the disruption that can happen with various industries. And we're talking about possibilities now.
Yeah.
So can you dive into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I think the biggest disruption that's going to cause, and I'll just take a single use case. If we think about whether it be manufacturing, and going back to, I'm going to go real far back and think about Industrial Revolution, people set up plants by water sources, right? You had to be by a river, you had to be by a lake, you had to be by a stream. Our opportunity, this technology is available water at scale, at source. So theoretically, if we have the environment, you could set up a facility nowhere near rivers, nowhere near lakes, because you're not draining them, you're not pulling them from it, and you have this different opportunity that's going to allow us to just do something completely different at scale. And that's a disruption, I think, for both from an ESG and environmental sustainability perspective. But then if you think about the consumer piece, right, and I know Pete alluded to this, and there's not a package or a product you're walking through a supermarket that doesn't have a water as an ingredient, right? And so the opportunity to also disrupt that in terms of not having to deal with shipping water thousands and thousands of miles, or having to deplete water sources from groundwater, from rivers, from streams, and being able to put it, again, at site is just that is a disruptor. It's got a million opportunities.
Well, go
If
ahead.
you look at what Uber did to the taxi business,
Yeah, great example.
we have that same opportunity right in front of us. But once again, we're pulling it from the air. I
Right.
mentioned before that there's more humidity in the air than all the rivers combined.
Right.
Just think about that for a minute. But then if you look at the disruption that something like an Uber did to a very established, business, that you had to have medallions and everything, completely change the dynamics of how consumers move, how they operate. Parents don't have to go pick up their kids. Uber can pick them up. It's just transformed that industry.
Right.
And we see that as the same opportunity for us with
Well,
air to water.
That's where the tech comes in.
It does.
Bringing the high quality drinking water. I mean,
Yeah.
Uber was not a taxi company. Uber is a tech company.
company.
Just happened to allow
Yeah.
people to find a way to moving humans.
Yeah.
Airbnb they're not a hotel.
Another great
Right.
example.
So
Yeah.
great example there. So, all right, you talked a little bit about the disruption,
Yeah.
and the part there that I'd like to talk to is when you think about the cost of where we're able to get water today, so oceans, rivers, where the desalination,
Yes.
the carbon footprint, it goes the cost, just the sheer cost of that. So how's this technology in air water impacting not beyond just providing a source that's going to help reduce and sustain water, but just the impact overall?
Yeah. I think it's a great point. And the other part that we, with our technology and these units, and as Pete mentioned, power source for us is also very different than what we currently have. Our units can be powered off of solar. They can be powered off of wind. They can be powered off of hydraulic generators. And so again, this goes back to a different path for us, where as we're looking into our technology and as we continue to work with different partners, we have the opportunity to create millions of gallons of water in the future, solar powered, completely off grid. So think about that, where we don't need a water line, we don't need a power line, right? We literally can set up these units and create significant amounts of water for us. So that right there is a disruptor, I think, right off the bat for it. And if we think about disaster relief efforts and things of that nature for it, events, think about concerts and opportunities like that. We see all the time, unfortunately, in the summertime, big concerts going on. There's no water. There's challenges and tragedies that happen because these concert goers can't get enough water. We can solve a lot of that problem for it. So I think there's a piece of that when you think about cost of managing electricity down, right? It's there's an upfront cost to a lot of things, but the cost that we're able to get down to a liter of water over a significant period of time is extremely competitive right now in a developed market like the U.S. and in areas like the UAE, it's cheaper.
Right.
And so I think that's the other part for us to do, is to figure out how do we continue to make this affordable option for a lot of different opportunities, whether it be businesses or consumers.
Well, one of the things that's happening, we see a trend, and we're talking about the single-use plastic bottles.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. There's some incredible statistics. That's a category that's continuing to grow.
It is, and as much effort or a conversation there is around recycling and the plastic bottling path, you're 100% right. It is growing. It is almost a $3.5 billion business right now, and it's growing to, I think, estimated close to about 12 or 13 billion by 2030. So you're talking about a 15 or 16% CAGR, where that is still going. People are still going down the bottled water path. There is going to be a challenge, though, very quickly, especially in the U.S., where we see our opportunity here in the Americas region. For us is how do we get off of that opportunity, right? That is going to come quickly, just like the water sources. I think Pete may have alluded to. There was as we're filming this right now, there was a groundbreaking ruling in California that's going to impact groundwater. All of that stuff's going to hit a lot of these consumer packaged goods companies around how they're going to be able to source this water, and then the plastic piece comes on top of that. So being able to look at our packaging, which again, as Pete said, we won't throw everything out there right now, but we know that aluminum cans and glass bottles are far more recyclable at this point in time in the U.S. than plastic bottles in single use. So we will certainly look at that. We're going to go down that path and figure out how we can manage that, again, at affordable opportunities for us, but also, give consumers a premium opportunity to be in this clean, pure water.
Yeah, and not only recyclable, but if you think about what you're doing at the Fairmont in
great
Abu Dhabi,
example.
I mean, that's reusable.
Reusable.
And so they have that on site, and they have I forget how many, maybe 5, 6, 7, 1,000
Yeah.
liter units.
They do.
And so when you're talking about the plastic, single-use plastic
Yeah.
bottles, the Fairmont itself has benefited tremendously.
You think about a hotel of that size, right, and to it, and so we're throwing 20,000 bottles, from a weekly basis. Where if you think about, you walk into your hotel room, there's 2 plastic bottles that are sitting there. What we've been able to do is change that to glass bottles for the the hotel guests to use. And to your point, we're able to collect those bottles, rewash them, sterilize them, refill them, and put them back into it. That is the epitome of sustainability at this point. So,
and if you look at their pool area, their outdoor area,
Yeah.
we have the water machines, that are right there with paper cups. So everything is designed to be 100% recyclable or sourced from the environment.
yeah.
Well, I'm not going to mention names, but the reusable, the people, the generations travel
yes.
with these
Containers,
bottles.
reusable
Containers,
containers.
yeah. What do you believe the real opportunity in numbers here in the U.S.?
Okay.
If not specific for air, water, but
Yeah.
a category opportunity. Talk
Yeah.
to me a little bit about that.
I think the opportunity and the size of scale, and as I mentioned, trying to break down our opportunities into smaller bite-sized opportunities for us is huge. And so let's just look at the consumer path, because we do believe the consumer opportunity in terms of pure drinking water, as we just mentioned, it's a growing category. It's an opportunity for us to grow. With both of our shared backgrounds too, we are consumer guys. We've kind of grown up in that space, so we understand it. We understand how it works. We understand how it doesn't work. And so if we think about that size of prize, as I mentioned, a $3.5 billion market share that we've got in terms of bottled water, think about the opportunities for us to take 1% share of that, or 2% share of that within a year. Now you're talking about significant opportunities for us, and we believe as we're standing at our period of differentiation for it is that pure water that's coming through, not a groundwater. It's not coming from a desalinization plant. It's not coming from a river or a stream. And so I think the more and more that we're connecting with, especially these next generations, I always speak a bit about, I have 2 teenagers, and they're very aware of this. They're very aware of the ESG models, as us as business heads would call it. But they're very aware of where the water, where their trash is going, where things are going, the electric vehicle pieces of it. So I think we're also looking at, from a future perspective, that future consumer, of how do we also continue to pull them in. You just mentioned a little bit around them, bringing around their containers and where they're at, right? They're trendsetters in a lot of ways. And so there is a huge consumer opportunity for us to take from that piece of market. And as we grow that, and as Pete said, we use the South Florida market as kind of our stomping grounds right now. And then we'll continue to grow that through. I think there's a real opportunity for us to take a significant market share.
Yeah. And currently, nobody can compete with us.
Yeah.
Currently, nobody is able to do this at scale. We've proven that it works at scale, and we're bringing that to the U.S. And I think Ryan was being kind when he said 1% or 2%. I'm looking at more 40, 50, 60%.
I love hearing that.
Because I'm here to compete against the water companies.
He's the visionary. I'm the operations guy. So.
No, I understand. Well, look, there's a responsibility here around water. I mean, water is our most important a commodity and resource for humanity. So it is a critical thing, and I have to believe any CEO, any exec, any head of sustainability from any company, any phone call that they receive from you or an email that says, we want to talk to you about this technology that will do X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely.
At least they're going to be open-minded to it. I doubt they're going to have a hard time getting meetings.
No, you nailed it, and I'll refer to a meeting we recently had with an organization, and we did have that ESG leader in the room, and so we're talking to the marketing executives and the operations people, and they're all very engaged. And that ESG leader literally said, "Well, this checks all my boxes," right? Yeah. And then it grows from there.
First presentation to do that.
Yeah, so there is opportunities for that, and we know that's not going away, right? That's a scenario that's just not here in the U.S. In the Americas, but that's a global conversation that we're having with it. So that's another right to win space for us.
Well, Pete, you just alluded to the fact that right now, air, water today, in terms of being able to deliver high quality drinking water, and the competition right now, it's not there today, but it will be.
It will be.
Yeah,
it will be. You're pioneering and leading a charge here around the world, really, but here for you, specifically to you two here in the U.S.
Sure.
Are there any emerging trends that you guys know of around tech that you're expecting to see as you go forward?
Yeah, I think the things we're keeping our eyes on, and especially with our our Chief Research and Development Officer, Dave Cook, back in the UAE, is how this process works. This process of atmospheric water generation, right? So as I think might have alluded to a little bit earlier, the basic premise has been around for a time, but the proprietary opportunities for us is how do we get it to do it cheaper, at scale, and you mentioned it too, Bert, in terms of the opportunity of purification, mineralization, filterization. All of that is proprietary to Air Water at this point, and we can literally create a water profile that tastes however you want. Right. And people don't realize that, but most people will grab a certain brand and they'll say, well, I don't like this brand because it tastes like this, or there's too much sodium, or this one tastes weird to me. Some people may like that at the same time. We can create that. We have that technology that's able to create that same taste pattern for us, which is, to me, as a non-technical scientist, is unbelievable that we can actually create something like that. So I think the technology piece for us is to watch out, where is this going next? What are the next levels of units, specifically around alternative energy sources? The solar path that I mentioned. The hydropower piece that we've mentioned, right? There was something, in terms of our team kicking around. What happens if we just make the water and then use the water to power it? Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, okay, we're going to be our own power source. So there's all these types of things that are out there for us. So I think we do have to keep our eye on the ball. We know that, first one through the door usually takes the most hits, but, we're ready for that. And I think our opportunities and our ability to get to speed to market is going to allow us to be successful.
Yeah, I can't imagine a buyer out there, if you go CPG, if you walk in and explain the story, the process, that isn't going to say this is different. This is fundamentally different, worth paying more for. So when we start looking at that and keeping the consumer at heart, meaning understanding what that consumer is looking for, especially a younger generation, they're willing to pay another $1 or $2 for something that they know comes from a sustainability. 2, doesn't pull or harm the environment. 3, gives back. And then 4, they'll pay more for it.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to get a little controversial here for a moment. So at retail, because you just struck something when you said that, at retail, the profit on single plastic, well, they're in cases, but plastic, single plastic usable water, the profit per bottle is massive for the retailers.
It is.
The question is, how do we get the adoption of the retailers to understand what this is? Because that is a huge profit for them.
Yeah. That's a fair question, but it's a business, and people are going to continue to operate, as a business. Everybody should have access to clean drinking water. That is, a necessity. We can do other things. If people buy our products, we can take those profits. We can partner with grocery stores to give back to the community.
Yeah,
one of the things we looked at if you look at Jalisco in Mexico, the wells are drying up. That's where all the tequila is produced. So if we could still pull water from the wells, but then what if I put these units in town that everybody has access to pure drinking water? For every gallon I pull out or liter I pull out of the ground, I get back 2 to 3-fold in the community. So they do have clean drinking water. So I think there's other ways we can take that profit and what we're doing that should be good for humanity and come back in another way to give back to community.
No, I love that. It makes a lot of sense. You mentioned earlier, water touches everything. You just talked about, Mexico and Jalisco, where most of the tequila, all the tequila is produced, and the amount of water that it takes to produce everything on the shelves in the stores and that type of thing. I don't know if people really understand, and Ryan that made this for you.
Sure.
They understand how many liters of water it takes to make a pair of jeans.
Oh my goodness!
Just a pair of jeans.
A pair of jeans. I mean, coming from our industry, a bottle of rum. As we were looking into it, you're right, Bert, and that's the part for us is, given the rum example or any rum, think about a 1 liter bottle of rum that you would pull from your liquor store. It takes 12 to 13 liters of water to make that one liter water.
That's amazing.
12 liters to make one bottle. And so, and that's just in a rum category. It actually gets further up as you get into whiskeys where you actually have evaporations and things of that nature. The jeans piece is a great example too in terms of the water cooling that's needed for machinery. The biggest one that struck me recently was these data centers that are coming through. I have a colleague that works in these large little, these AI data centers. They go through 300,000 gallons of water a week in a 5-day process to cool down all of their blades and all of the different servers that they have. 300,000 gallons of water. And that water sometimes has, chemicals in it in order to make sure the cooling piece of it actually works. So it's not potable when it comes out the other side. That water's coming from somewhere, right?
Well, think about the listeners. I mean, if you making a beverage, let's talk about a beverage.
Yeah,
There's companies out there that make a beverage, and if you go to all their facilities, they might be using 15 to 16 million liters of water per day.
Yeah.
Per day. So,
absolutely.
Man, what you guys are on is going to be a fun ride, and it is exciting. Final question, and we'll wrap it up here shortly. And I'd like to hear from both of you, but from your leadership, what can the listeners expect to see from Air/Water Company, around your leadership in terms of how you're going to lead the company, how you're going to build the company, the values of the company, and you kind of alluded to that earlier, Pete. But I think it's a good way to finish from both of you.
Yeah. I think it comes back to the basics and the fundamentals of who you are as a leader should come through the organization, whether it be strong leadership, whether it be cultural aspect. But the thing that I think is going to set us apart differently is making a difference in the community. We joked about, and you said to me, hey, Carr, maybe you can make a difference in the world.
He used that with me, by the way, too, Bert.
I'm glad it works.
Fundamentally, that should be and probably will be our mantra. What if you can make a difference in the world? Because everybody says, I want to make a difference in the world, and I've said it before, and I'm sure you've said it. But yeah, you get to it and you say, what can I really do? What impact can I really have? We know water can impact everyone. Whether you make $1 million a year, you make $2 a year. Everybody needs water and should have access to water. So to me, that will be the fundamental charge of how do we make a sustainable difference, an ongoing difference. Because this to me is a game changer. And like I've always said, I chase opportunity, I don't chase money. This is a unique opportunity like none I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah. So those of you listening out there, think about that. The product, the technology, the leadership, the culture that is proven that you guys have built in companies even before Air/Water. As you build your team over the next few months and next couple of years, I'm sure some of these listeners are going to listen to this episode or watch this episode, and you're going a lot of people will be knocking on your door. They're going to want to make that impact and make that difference. So guys, I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you both for coming in. For those that want to learn more about Air/Water, you go to the website. It's A1RWATER.com, airwater.com. And so go to that link, pull it up. You can find out a lot more about what we're talking about, see the technology, see how it works. There's a lot of visuals on there that I think really starts to explain what we're really doing here, pulling air out of the water, making high quality drinking water. So go to that website, you'll find out a lot more. It's been very, very informative, guys. I look forward to bringing you guys back middle to end of the first quarter and see what impact you've actually have made. Look forward to it then. This is Bert Miller, and this has been Beyond the Bottom Line. I'll see you next time.